Welcome back to another deadline stream reaction stream for Game Week 29. We're going to talk about how Game Week 28 has gone so far as well. Go through your questions and comments. Talk about how we've done after all the games have concluded. And of course, we did have some FA Cup games today as well. Brighton versus Grimsby, Sheffield versus Blackburn, and Man United against Fulham. So we can talk about that as well, and maybe what we think about some of these assets going forwards. And the bench boost will be very popular heading into Double Game Week 29, which is still a few weeks away because we do have an international break coming up right now. So we'll go straight into that and talk about anything that needs to be discussed, our initial reactions to that as well. Saka captain as United, fair play, John. I have to say, Saka was my vice captain, but I don't think I was going to captain him over Harry Kane and the others. So fair play to those of you that went with him. I actually was expecting a bit more of a cagey game. I know Palace have been poor this season, but they tend to lose by a goal or two, and it's quite rare for them to concede 3 or 4. And of course, with Vieira being sacked, that maybe played a part in things as well. But Arsenal were always the favourites going into that, and this is the first time since 2018 that Arsenal have won at home against Crystal Palace. I'm an Arsenal fan, captain Kane instead of Saka, exactly the same happy. I mean, it happens. I'd rather have Arsenal winning than FPL points. Both would be ideal, but I know what I'd rather choose. Cheeky 3% Green Arrow, super pissed after yesterday's Chelsea game. I did tell you, Wasting, looking at your team, that I wouldn't be that pessimistic, and if anything, it was me that got the red arrow from around 78,000, so a 10k red arrow. Having Odegaard over Martinelli, not captaining Saka, and a few things like buying in Chilwell. And I have to say, Chilwell owners like yourself who captain him, very unlucky. He played really well, one of the best players on the pitch, but sometimes FPL maybe is a bit harsh because it doesn't reward players who play well, and instead you have to get the goal, the assist, the clean sheet, all the bonus points, which mainly come from one of those 3 things. So it is frustrating. And then, yeah, Kepa as well. I have to say, I never expected Everton to score 2, come back twice, and get a draw like that. But there you go. That's football. And Chelsea are still a bit suspect. Made my own mistake. I'm okay to take this punishment. I still don't think Chilwell is a bad decision. Maybe to captain him, you could say is a step too far, whatever, but he played really well, so I don't think it's the worst decision. So scary as I took a -4 this week. Yeah, I mean, a 3% Green Arrow with a -4 hit taken, you know, that's pretty good, in my opinion. 1.3 million to 880k thanks to Saka captaincy. Yeah, captaincy can be really important, especially in blank game weeks and these kind of low scoring ones. I know some people will have 60, 70, maybe even 80 points this week, but that's quite rare, especially if you're looking at 80. I don't think I've seen anyone yet who reached that. So look, that's really good, and you can still get a few more big green arrows. If you look at Double Gameweek 29, that could be another huge swing in your favour too. 60 says Dom, and EG says 61. Does anyone know the average this week? I'm not sure if I know the average, but in terms of my safety score, so what I needed to get a green arrow or prevent a red one was 53, and I got 49 in the end. 75 points with 10 players, that's good stuff, and that's why I even said this quite a few times heading into this blank game week. It's not just about the quantity of players, it's about the quality. 10 is already a good number, and I was seeing some people saying, should I take a -4, a -8, or -12 to get to 11, and I just didn't like it in most cases too. Tony's an FPL troll, can't believe I captain him. Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I'm of the opinion that if I captained him last week, he probably would have blanked against Southampton, and that also played a part into why I probably didn't captain him in Game Week 27. But yeah, I mean, Leicester was there for him to, you know, as a good fixture for him to haul. But actually, when I looked at the recent record after the stream, I did realise that I don't think Brentford have beaten Leicester last season, this season, and in the FA Cup in recent meetings. So Leicester have a good record against Brentford, and to be fair, you could say Brentford should have been out of sight after the first half, but they did drop a bit in the level in the second half. 3 reds against United, 3 goals for United, 3 trips for United, so drippy. Yeah, I don't want to talk about the red cards. I mean, look, you can argue for it all you want, all the reds, but I think all of them at the same time on top of the penalty is just, it's really harsh, but I don't want to talk too much about that. Do I sell Tony for Isak or wait? Look, Isak was very impressive yesterday, or should I say on Friday. I don't think I'd sell Tony. I know why you're looking at doing that, because he's 1 yellow card away from suspension, but I think I'd risk it and keep Tony. That would be my initial thinking. I could be wrong about that, to be fair. If you've got no other transfers to make and, you know, you really are set on getting Isak, fair play. But I'm still not convinced about Newcastle offensively, and they have some tough games coming up too. 68 had a great week onto the Game Week 29 bench boost. That's good stuff, yeah. 68 points would have been great for me in my situation as well. But I think 68 in most kind of ranks would be a green arrow. Will there be a free hit team for Game Week 29? That would be the plan, but as I did say, in around a week I will be on holiday and it will be difficult for me to get content out. I will try my best. I think streams will be more difficult than anything else, but like I said, my intention is to do that. And if I am making content and I'm able to, then there will be a free hit team. The same goes for the wildcard team, team selection, and all of that. Rashford form, I mean, he had a good chance today. I still would captain him over any other United player, and he probably will be... I'm not sure if he's my definite captain for 29, but he's right up there in the, you know, contenders. Russell gets P3. I saw that. I mean, that's just stupid. How long did they have to decide that for Fernando Alonso and his penalty? They wait, what, half an hour? Yeah, half an hour. And they also wait for him to celebrate in the podium, a bit like Vettel last season, and then they just take it away. It sums up the FIA, I guess. Any thoughts about Mings and Ferguson for double game week? Ferguson was great today, but let's bear in mind he did play against Grimsby. You know, not exactly a great team. Obviously, they did really well to get so far, but I wouldn't necessarily just buy in Ferguson all of a sudden. And my preference is still with the midfielders and Estupiñán. But look, if you want something a bit different, then Ferguson's definitely a decent, cheap option. I've always said he's one of the best forwards if you want someone around 5 million or under. He's definitely up there. As for Tyrone Mings, I'm still not convinced about Villa defensively, but you have to say, of the last 4 game weeks, I think they have 3 clean sheets. So he's not a bad option. He got a big haul in Game Week 28 as well. So yeah, I think it's not a bad choice, but I'm still not that convinced in the long term about Aston Villa defensively. But you have to say they have been good. 48 points is that good? It depends. I don't think it's terrible, but it's not great. I'd say it's pretty much an average or slightly below average week. Depending on where you are, to be fair, you could still have a green arrow, but I think around my rank, for example, it's definitely a red. All the money I save for 29, not having Kane, not even needed unless I get Bruno. I still like Kane, but Spurs have been so inconsistent. That's now 5 games away in a row that they haven't won in all competitions, and they're just so inconsistent. And I still think they have a good chance of top 4, but honestly, it's Harry Kane or nothing from the Spurs team. Davis got an injury as well. He was probably their second best kind of FPL asset. But yeah, so many question marks about them. Still the same thing with Bowen and West Ham assets. I'm not really feeling it. I know they have the fixtures, and Bowen was great last season, scored, I think, a brace in the Conference League, but he's playing against a really terrible team. And in the Premier League, he's done it very, very, how do I say, it's very infrequently. You know, I think 1 big performance against Everton, apart from that, very inconsistent. Bruno or Maddison? I did say Bruno a week ago, and he did score a penalty today, but yeah, look, I'd probably stick with Bruno. I have to say that I am really considering Maddison, and I think the extra millions that could be saved for maybe getting Haaland back in 30, that also is quite appealing. And I'm also open to bringing Haaland back in for maybe Ivan Toney this week, you know, if I decide to go that way too. Let's see what else we have. I'm going to try whiz through these since I am a bit behind. Instead of Bowen, we should look at Benrahma. Yeah, he is the kind of informed West Ham player in recent months, you could say. My problem with Benrahma is that he's always subbed off a bit early. David Moyes, even if Benrahma's playing well, he'll sub him off early, which I don't like. Anaru Checker for Leclerc. Yeah, I mean, look, F1 is like that, to be fair, and very unlucky, I think, for people who have someone like Stroll who DNFs, or you have Aston Martin as your constructor, but that's part of the game. That's F1. What to do with Tony? It's a tricky situation, I think. If you have no other transfers that you want to prioritise in midfield or defence, then I would consider selling him. And honestly, I'm looking to sell him anyway in 30 or 31, so I could even do that a week earlier, bring Haaland back in 29, or perhaps go a bit differently, go for another forward with a double game week. But I have to say, if I were to buy a forward back in, it's Haaland. It's not going to be Havertz or anyone else. If Isak can stay fit, Watkins to Isak move could happen in 31. Yeah, that's also another shout. I'd actually rather get rid of Tony than Watkins right now, though, I have to say. Tony to Havertz in 29, if I'm even going to sell him in 30 for Haaland. I mean, yeah, it's worth a punt. Havertz has 2 home games once again, and he has been fairly decent recently. I don't trust Havertz still. Maybe I'm a bit biased there, you could say, whatever, but I still don't trust him, and I wouldn't be surprised if he failed to deliver in 29. Let's wait and see, of course, but I'd actually rather buy Haaland back in against Liverpool. 57 -4 this week. Saka captain single-handedly saved me this week. The rest of my team was dreadful. Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm not the best person to ask because I did captain Kane over Saka, but I think in 29, my initial thoughts was Rashford, and I know he hasn't been in the best form in the last few games, but he'd still be right up there for me. Bruno's another decent option. You've got a few other contenders like Matoma, even March, and players like that, but I think Rashford would still be at the top of the agenda. Should I keep Tony or bring in Isak? Look, I think Isak's not a bad punt, and whenever he has played, he has looked good, but I'm still a bit concerned about Newcastle offensively in general. But yeah, I think overall it's a good move in the long term. Looking beyond 29, where Tony could outscore him, but when you factor in the yellow card suspension risk and stuff like that, it makes sense, don't get me wrong. Imagine Mateus auto sub. Yeah, I've seen some kind of weird auto subs happen. It is what it is. Overall average is 33.42. Yeah, it's a shame the average around my rank isn't like that, but yeah, I did get a red arrow, just for those of you that aren't aware. I went from 78,000 to 88,000. Things were looking good, especially when Chelsea had the clean sheet. I was into 60k, maybe looking to push beyond that, but yeah, obviously things took a turn for the worse, and sometimes it comes down to these kind of minute details, you know, Odegaard versus Martinelli, your captaincy picks, and I don't think Kane captain has got it completely wrong because he got a return. He was on 39 points at one stage of the game, and I don't think any of us expected Saka to get 18 points. Let's not forget, Saka has only produced 2 double-digit returns before today against Liverpool and Everton, so it's not that frequent, and most of his kind of big returns are 9-pointers. Yeah, Maddison is good, of course he is, and he's never blanked against Brentford, which is something I actually didn't mention heading into that game, but yeah, he returned in both games now against them this season, and he is a great option now with some good fixtures against Palace and Villa. Water Steele from -4. I mean, I'm seeing some people a bit concerned about Steele with Sanchez coming into the FA Cup. I wouldn't be too concerned. I think Steele comes back in for the Premier League, but yeah, it's not a bad transfer. Look, I'm not a big fan of -4s for goalkeepers. That will pay off, though. Especially if you're looking to bench boost, I think it makes sense. But in most circumstances, I would have said no. Can't believe Ward's dropped. Messes up my bench boost for next week. Should I spend a -4 on him? I mean, look, even if Ward starts, how many points is he going to get? Let's be real. He'll probably get 3 or 4 maximum. So I think Iverson will keep his place in the team. Remember, they did get a positive result in a really difficult stadium there for Leicester. Let's not forget, Brentford have lost 1 time all season at home. So Leicester got a really good result there. I think Iverson keeps his place, a bit like Steele versus Sanchez. So yeah, I would take a -4 and go to one of Pope, Kepa, Raya, or even Steele. Then afterwards, you know, you can make a debate for other goalkeepers, but I think those are the 4 best ones right now. 47 points, okay week. Yeah, I mean, I got 49. It's pretty underwhelming, and I think the fact that the Arsenal players hold so big and the ones I didn't have, and actually one thing I didn't mention, Zinchenko coming off just after Arsenal conceded, that is just absolutely typical, because I saw Tierney was warming up around 59 minutes. I was saying, okay, just hold on for a few more seconds, don't boot it out of play, so Zinchenko can bang that clean sheet. In the end, I actually wish that did happen, but there you go. Yeah, Darwin is out. It doesn't mean for Game Week 29 necessarily, but he's missing the games for Uruguay in the international break. What we're supposed to do in 2 weeks without FPL? Enjoy. I mean, it's not all about FPL. We've got international break. I know people aren't a big fan of it, but actually, I'm kind of maybe an odd exception here. I actually always enjoy watching my country play. It's always a pleasure, so I'm actually not that fussed. Also, it's time to charge the batteries. I'm on holiday anyway, and it makes it a bit easier for me to manage with all the content and stuff, which I could miss out on, especially in terms of streams. So I'm actually not that fussed about the break coming up. And also, with a red arrow, maybe I do need a bit of time to reset. Rate Saka's form and Saka versus Martinelli. But I think, I'm not sure if it was you or someone else, literally just a week ago said, oh, I'm not too sure about Saka, he hasn't been playing that well. Look, Saka's explosive at times, and I think the main thing I can say about Saka, he's been consistent over the course of the season. So even when he doesn't play that well, like against Fulham, he's still putting a 6 out of 10 performance, and that was his worst performance overall. You look at Martinelli, I don't think he's been playing great, but what he is doing is scoring crucial goals, you know, putting Arsenal up, ahead against Crystal Palace today. There's a few other times he's given Arsenal the lead against Leicester as well. He's scoring crucial goals. So, yeah, really, it's really frustrating for me to own Odegaard at the moment. I think the likes of Martinelli and Saka, those are the Arsenal midfielders to have. It wouldn't surprise me if I sell Odegaard this week and he's the one returning against Leeds and is Saka blanking. Matty Cash time, yeah, I think Mings is the safest option, but I do like Matty Cash. As much as I can like a Aston Villa defender, to be fair. Any differential choice for double game week? Yeah, not a bad question. I think Isak will be up there. I'm not suddenly a huge fan because I still have my doubts about him, you know, being kind of a nailed-on striker for you until the end of the season, but he could be a decent kind of short-term punt. I'd also say Tyrone Mings, and there's a few others that come to mind as well, but yeah, I think those are the maybe two of the main ones with low ownership. Conte rant thoughts? It is a bit funny, but look, if we are taking, you know, all the bias aside, he is kind of right. I think there's a way of going about it, you know. It's very toxic now, especially calling out your own players in public. But he is right. You know, if Spurs want to get somewhere, they need to change the mentality around everything and not just, you know, because there's always the same discussions about the owners who ultimately are at fault, but the players as well need to take responsibility. They're 3-1 up against Southampton without deserving to be. You hold on to that lead. And look, also being, you know, objective, that was never a penalty. The one that Maitland-Niles won, I don't know how you can check, how the officials can check VAR and give that as a penalty, and it just sums up the state of officiating in the country. I'm considering Game Week 29 to be fair, Ian, but my original plan was to bring him back in for 30. With Tony being 1 yellow away from suspension, I might actually fast forward that move 1 week earlier, but I've also got other moves I want to make, such as Odegaard out, maybe for Maddison or Bruno, also bringing in a defender, maybe a Stupinian once again. So if that's the case, I don't want to take a -8 hit to bring Haaland back in. I could always wait another week. So most likely, I think Game Week 30 is when I'll bring him back. It's possible. I hope he doesn't. I'd like Liverpool to do something there, but yeah, I think City will win that quite comfortably, unfortunately. I'm thinking Odegaard to Maddison and Zinchenko to Shaw and maybe take a -8 and do Saka to Bruno. I don't think I would. Saka's still a great option until the end of the season on penalties. There's a lot to like there. And I actually think Saka maybe not outscores Bruno, but I think he is kind of levelling him from now until the end of the season. So I don't think I'd take that hit. Yeah, Isak, decent option. He's not my favourite forward, just to make that very clear. I do prefer Tony, but with that yellow card risk, it's always going to be a bit of a problem. Haaland, of course, to bring him back in, Harry Kane, and you've still got other forwards as well, like Watkins, who I do prefer. But Isak is definitely entering that conversation, and he was very impressive. No, Bruno Fernandes is not essential. He hasn't been at any point this season. He isn't suddenly because he, scored a penalty today. I don't think so. Welcome, Aranya. My front three is Ivan, Tony, Kane, and Watkins. Yeah, same here. I think it's the optimal front three right now. The problem now, Lewis, is obviously the yellow card risk. Midfield is Saka, Odegaard, Mitoma, Maddison, Salah. Looks good. Defense is Chilwell, Stupinian, Trippier, who I bought in. Who would you say I get for a -4? Well, you've got a really good team overall in every single position. What I would look to do is sell Odegaard potentially and maybe go to... You've got most of the key options this week, to be fair, but I wouldn't even mind another Brighton midfielder there for Odegaard. It's not a necessary transfer, but I do think it looks good. Yeah, I'd say maybe Odegaard to Bruno. Looks pretty solid. I'm pretty sure you can afford that. And if you don't have Rashford, Lewis, I'd go to Rashford. He's still my preference over Bruno Fernandes. Haven't used my wild card. I think 33 is the best week to use. It might be in your team. It might be. Set my bench boost in 29, free at 32, load up on City and United in 33. Arsenal have 4 tricky fixtures. They do on paper. And look, Arsenal have the best away record. They are 8 points clear, but I do see some slip-ups, like against Liverpool, possibly Man City. They tend to lose them anyway, and Newcastle's another really tough test, and even some of the home games aren't easy, so it won't, Arsenal could slip up in some of these games, and I can see why you want to trim it down, and I think that strategy looks very solid. Brian or cooking? Yeah, to be honest, I'm seeing some people say that Graham Potter's a bit of a fraud or whatever, and that Brighton are just really good, but Potter did play a part in building them up. But De Zerbi's been fantastic, and I wouldn't be surprised if the likes of Tottenham are looking to poach him as the new manager. The ranks have been updated, yes, so everything you see on the left-hand side is all updated. Is double Newcastle defence still worth it? I mean, if you base it on recent games, no. I don't think that's a clean sheet in the last 6 games. Since the World Cup, they've been very, very suspect and, a lot of draws, not enough wins in that time period. But now starting to get into a bit of form, and I think Newcastle will ultimately keep a clean sheet in 29. Obviously, it's wishful thinking. If I'm wildcarding right now, would I go for double Newcastle defence? I don't think I would. Zinchenko should have been subbed off before the goal went. Yeah, exactly. And that kind of sums up maybe the luck this week, but there you go. A lot of us did have him. 55 for the week because of TV. I thought Tony got the red. Luckily, no. Oh yeah, that I mean, maybe that would have helped Tony being sent off or something like that, or getting another yellow because it kind of sorts your decision for 29 to sell him for an Isak or another four like Haaland again. Welcome Valerio, good to see you. Is Salah captain Gameweek 29 a go? Not for me. I don't think it's a bad option, but 2 away games. If you look at Liverpool's record away, I think it's 3 wins, 3 draws, and 7 losses. It's simply not good enough, and I don't see Liverpool doing that well against Chelsea or a City. I think Chelsea's obviously their best chance. They can get a draw, which is the most likely scenario, maybe even a win, but I don't think I'd captain Salah over Rashford and all the other options this week. De Gea, not worth it. He's all right. I mean, he made a really good save today, but United, I'm not so sure. I'd just rather go for Shaw to cover their defence and then go for Bruno and Rashford. That's my ideal triple up. Should I use my wildcard for 29? I don't know your team, so it's impossible for me to answer that correctly. If an outfield player has to be put in to play goalkeeper due to injuries or red card, will he get save points or save penalty points? No, I don't think so. That's a good question, though, with save penalty points, because I could be wrong about that, but I don't think he does, oddly enough. Salah or March for double game week? For the double game week, I'd actually back March to outscore him, but Salah would still be the better option up until game week 38, especially with, you know, all the other circumstances taken into account. But for 29, I'd actually rather go for March. Bench 4 for next week: Edison, Forster, Trippier, Botman, Zinchenko, Mia, Stupinian, Odegaard, Saka, Maddison, Mitoma, Rashford, Haaland, Kane, Tony. You're going to have some points on your bench, let's put it that way. Who would I bench? Probably Odegaard, Zinchenko, and yeah, in terms of goalkeepers, I'd bench Forster. Yeah, I'd bench Forster. And the last player to bench from your outfield ones is kind of tricky. I'd even consider Tony, which could be risky, of course, but yeah, I'd definitely bench Odegaard, Zinchenko, and Forster. Saka captain was easy choice. That's very, very hindsight. I'm sorry. That's really hindsight. Probably one of the most hindsight comments I've seen. What is wrong with Chelsea? I mean, they've been inconsistent all season. They have improved recently in terms of getting those results, but it's kind of the same old issue. People said last week, oh, what about Havertz, Felix? And I said, yeah, they're not bad. 3 home games in 2. You know, it's not too bad, but I'm not that convinced. I actually was more confident in the defence, and that's maybe what kind of bit me in the end in game week 28. But I think Shaw is still a great option. You know, he played really well. He was arguably Chelsea's best player on the day, and I think the returns will come. Maddison or Bowen or Benrahma for game week 29? Maddison. Benrahma is in better form than Bowen, but oddly enough, I'd probably back Bowen to get more returns in general. Welcome, Diogo. 48 points for me and was enough for a small green arrow. Captain Kane, but I wasn't mad about the Saka haul because the effective ownership at my rank isn't stupidly high. Yeah, in my case, it was a bit different, but yeah, that's good. I mean, as long as you got a green arrow, that's good. And it's kind of the best case scenario if you didn't nail on the captaincy like some people did. I have 3 Brighton midfielders and 3 Newcastle defenders for game week 29, which is not ideal. My plan is to bench boost. Would you transfer out any of those 29 players? Potentially, but only you know, if it's for free, Aranya. I wouldn't do it for a hit because I think that could be counterproductive. Oddly enough, I think those 2 triple ups, it can actually work this week. Even if it's not good in the long term, 29 is where it could all come together for you. So, like I said, I'd only do it for free, not for a hit. Owen Ward, who do I replace him with for a bench boost? For me, the 3 best goalkeepers are Raya, Pope, and Kepa. And then you've got a few others, you know, like Steele, De Gea, who are also in the mix. But yeah, one of those 5 would make it. I'm guessing you have one of those already. So yeah, if I had to kind of prioritize, I think, yeah, Raya and Kepa would be my favourites. Look, De Gea in isolation is arguably just as good as those options, but my issue with De Gea is that United can also concede a lot of goals on their travels, and not only that, you'd probably want the likes of Shaw, Bruno and Rashford if you want that United triple up. Game week 29 triple captain. My initial thoughts was Rashford, so I'll stick with that, despite, you know, maybe some underwhelming performances today and recent weeks. But yeah, Rashford's up there. Harvey Barnes, good differential. Yeah, he's decent. I do prefer Maddison, but Barnes is the second best Leicester midfielder for sure. El Clasico predictions. I haven't seen the lineups, so maybe I should check that out before, you know, giving a concrete prediction. But it's tough. I think Madrid tend to win at Camp Nou, but Barcelona have been so solid this season. I think I'm going to go for a draw. I'm not sure exactly what score. Maybe 1-1, but it's very, very close to call that game. And also, a draw favours Barcelona. They're very solid defensively. I know they have some key players missing, like Pedri, and I think that also could play into Madrid's hands, but I think a draw. Wood out for a -4, easy. Who in? Well, I think it makes sense. Only if you're looking to bench boost. If you've got another goalkeeper, of course, it's not an issue. You don't need to take a hit or even transfer him out. But yeah, if you're bench boosting away saying I'd take a -4, yeah, I think it makes sense. Because honestly, I don't see Ward starting. And not only that, even if he does, I don't see him getting 4 points or more, whilst the other goalkeepers I've recommended definitely can. Keep Saka in 29. Look, if you sell him for a Bruno or something like that, I don't think it's the worst decision. So we can't just suddenly say, oh, you don't have to do that or just keep him. He's a must-have. But I'd personally keep him. He is the best Arsenal midfielder for me, closely followed by Martinelli, and then it's probably between Trossard and Odegaard, sorry. Yeah, Odegaard's been very disappointing, which has been a source of frustration for me in recent weeks. What to do with Ward? I'd sell him, very simply. And also, if he starts, he's not getting points. Welcome, John, 72 this week, all due to captaining Saka and Jensen. I actually backed Jensen to get a return this week. I put him in the best free hit team. But yeah, a very fortuitous goal, you could say, but really good stuff. 72 is a massive score, honestly. In a week like this, 72 is, I'm telling you, that is a really good score. But I can make better subs than Potter. Yeah, maybe. To be fair, there's a lot of managers that make quite suspect substitutions. I mean, Benrahma's in better form, and you can't ignore that, but I'd still prefer Bowen. Maybe that's just kind of a gut feeling, nothing more to be, said there. Yeah, fair enough, Chat Sport. It's just West Ham, I still don't trust them. I honestly don't. I would rather go for a midfielder like Bowen or Benrahma over the defenders. And if you were to go for a defender, I think Zuma's the best one, just coming back from an injury. Thoughts on the Saka haul? He was actually playing pretty poorly before the goal, and even before the assist, actually. But that Saka for you, even when he's playing, not to his best level, he can get these returns. He's so consistent, and he's actually the first Premier League player now this season to reach 10 plus goals and 10 plus assists. So he's arguably, he's definitely up there in contention for player of the season with the likes of Odegaard, Haaland, and a few others. But yeah, I mean, Saka can do that, and Palace are awful. It's time for a 2 up front formation. I disagree. I still like Harry Kane. Haaland is Haaland. You'll probably want him back eventually. You've got Watkins, and all of a sudden you've got a few other forwards to choose from. Ivan Toney, Isak, Iheanacho. Obviously, that's a source of frustration this week being benched, but he's still an option if he can get those minutes. Havertz and Felix are becoming more and more popular. Watkins. While your transfer plans, I'll save this more for the videos, but you will know it if you see my team selection and stuff. So a rough kind of plan is to get the likes of Maddison/Bruno in, maybe even both, and a defender like Shaw or Stupinian, and I'd be trimming down my Arsenal players. So Odegaard and Zinchenko are likely to make way, and then I'm looking to bench boost, and I would have 13 doublers, and the 2 single gameweek options would be Saka and Harry Kane. Would you keep Odegaard or transfer Maddison? I'd probably sell him. Now look, I said this earlier in the stream, I would not be surprised if Odegaard returned once we sell him, but I still think it's a worthwhile transfer, and Maddison outscores him over the next 4 or 5 game weeks. Is Haaland better than Mbappe at club? I mean, it's difficult to compare. Mbappe plays in a weaker league, and Haaland is a less complete player than Mbappe. I think Mbappe has more to his game, but Haaland's goal scoring record is frightening, of course. I think on the international stage, Mbappe's better, but then again, he's playing in a much better team. And as for the club level, this season, yeah, you'd have to give Haaland the edge. But goals, I'm not just a goals person. I also like to see the overall play, and I don't think Haaland is a complete player. Maddison injured. I still think he'll be fine for 29. He's always got a niggle. This is the problem with Maddison. He's always got a bit of a problem, but I wouldn't be too concerned right now. Should we wait until the international break? Of course. Do not make transfers now, mate. A lot could happen in the international break, not just in those games, but also in training at club level. I would not risk it. There's no need to. Even if you're going to be priced out, I'd find another solution. Even if it means getting rid of Saka instead of Odegaard or Martinelli and stuff like that. Honestly, save your transfers. Don't do it now. Maddison in 29 and Kane in 30, or Bruno in 29 and Isak in 30. I like both, but my preference is Maddison and Kane. Only got 53 for my hit. Not too bad, though. Could be a green arrow. Enzo still played well. Yeah, look, he's... Despite Chelsea's struggles over the course of the season and since January, Enzo's been doing pretty well. I think people just remember him, getting ripped by Adeyemi and stuff like that, but he is a good player. I don't think he's playing in the best position as well. I know he played that position for Argentina in the World Cup, but his best position is more advanced, and once he does, you'll see the best of him. I was always going Saka because Spurs are terrible away from home. Yeah, but even with that, Spurs scored 3 away from home, and Kane got that goal, and Kane's got a great record against Southampton. And honestly, home or away, Kane is always, likely to return. And I even mentioned this in the deadline stream. Arsenal always struggle against Palace at home, so this is kind of one of the odd exceptions to that. Just brought in Rashford for Odegaard. I think I'm set now for 29. Fair enough. I mean, it's still risky. I don't see anything bad happening there with Rashford, but you just never know. Play Botman or Kane. I'd actually probably still play Kane against Everton. That's just my personal opinion, but I wouldn't also want to bench a double gameweek player. If you've got the bench boost, I'd consider using it, of course. I don't have my free hit, so do you bring in Man United players like Shaw? Bruno Fernandes is a bad move? No, I don't think so. I just mentioned it as my potential transfer plans as well. I might not go for a triple up, but I think one of them, could be coming into my team for sure. And I'm still open to the idea of a triple up. Anyone is a must for 29? Not really. I mean, you could argue the likes of Rashford, a Brighton midfielder, stuff like that. I'd also recommend a Brighton defender. But I don't think there's anyone that's absolutely must-have. You can still do really well without some of the key assets. Thank you, John. I appreciate it. Brighton midfielder, good captaincy option. Yeah. My problem with Brighton midfielders, and I said this even heading into 27 when I captained Mitoma, is the fact that they shed the points quite a lot. So, for example, when you have someone like Rashford at United, he's the talisman, typically, and that's why he is more of a favourable FPL option. With Brighton midfielders, it can be a bit tricky. It could be March 1 week, then McAllister, then Mitoma. But look, they all make for good options. My preference is still Mitoma. And actually, he was quite wasteful today. Missed an open goal, then ended up getting quite a fortunate one at the end. But yeah, they are good options. And at the moment, I think Mitoma is my vice-captain. United look void of ideas versus Fulham. Yeah, they did, but that kind of decision, that penalty, that whole situation did change the game. And United always, keep on trying to pile the pressure. And at Old Trafford, there's a reason why they've only lost once, I think, this season, and that was against Brighton. And United obviously would be the second favourites, I'd say, for the FA Cup. But yeah, Fulham, I think, lost their heads a little bit. But in my opinion, the referee was overly harsh, to say the least. I'm putting it very lightly and trying to be diplomatic, but yeah, the referee for me changed the game. I never double up on clubs in the defence and goalkeeper. That's fair. I've got two of them, which is a bit concerning. But yeah, I was really confident in Chilwell, and he played well, so I don't actually regret that decision. I'm just a bit frustrated that he only got a 1-pointer for his efforts. Best 5 midfielders for 29, I'd say Rashford, Mitoma, probably March, Maddison and Bruno Fernandes. That's my 5 favourite. You could also put someone like Salah in the mix, of course, even single game week options like Saka, Martinelli, etc. But that's my top 5. Is Botman a troll? He has been poor recently. I think with Botman, whenever I don't start him, he does well. But when I do start him, he's just absolutely useless, a bit like Andreas Pereira. It's still a decent option, though, for his price. Thank you, Chat Sport. Got 59 points this week with Saka as my captain. That's a good score. That should be a green arrow. I'm fairly sure about that. Saka to Rashford or Zinchenko to Shaw. I'd actually rather do Zinchenko to Shaw. Rash is a great option. I try to fit him into your team if you can, but you could keep Saka at the same time. But Zinchenko to Shaw is an upgrade, in my opinion. And Arsenal, especially at home, I just don't see them keeping clean sheets. They should have kept one today, but I think they just switched off in key moments, and arguably Palace should have scored more in the end. Best game week to wildcard after 29. Depends on the team. I don't want to, sit on the fence. It really depends on the team. 2 game weeks that stand out to me would be game week 30 or 33. But honestly, it depends on your team. I'd say for most, 33 looks more sensible. Dylan, do I sell Tony for Havertz, Felix, or Jensen for Mitoma in 29? Look, I think the move of the higher upside is Jensen to Mitoma. The big problem is if Tony gets that yellow and he's suspended for the second game, what then? And that's going to be the one that you might regret. But assuming Tony can just, hold off, not get the yellow in the first game, and at least, go that game unscathed. If he can do that, I think the best move is Jensen to Mitoma. Gabriel to Stupinian -4? Yes. But I'll definitely wait with that transfer. There are some concerns about Stupinian not playing the first game of 29. I think he will, but just keep an eye on that situation. What happened to Ward? I mean, he's pretty terrible as a goalkeeper. And yeah, Leicester need to change something because they're 17th now in the league. And Ward, honestly, I think Rodgers has been very lenient with him, giving him so many opportunities to kind of prove himself. But yeah, with Ward, I wouldn't expect him to get back into the team now. Hey Dylan, I'm actually thinking of getting a Brighton midfielder over Bruno. I think that's fine. Brighton midfielders would be up there for me in terms of captaincy options, and with Bruno, he's much more expensive. That could also be at the detriment to your team of bringing Haaland back in for game week 30 or keeping the likes of Kane if you wish. Maddison or Bruno or both? My original thinking was Bruno, and I'll stick with that. But there are some pros behind going for Maddison. He's much cheaper, better fixtures as well in 29. And also, it might allow you to get Haaland back in 30. If you can't get Haaland back in 30 by going for Bruno, then I would definitely go the other way. But otherwise, if money is no issue, I'd slightly prefer Bruno in the long term. Got 54 with 9 players. There you go. Once again, another example of the fact that it's not just about quantity, it's about the quality of players. I can't believe it took us half the season to start calling him Haaland. Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I never really paid attention to it, but some Norwegians kind of made a point of it, and I was like, yeah, fair enough, I'll address that. I kind of want to double up with Maddison and Bruno for 29, but then I have to transfer out Kane instead of Tony for Haaland, so probably staying with just Maddison. Yeah, I think that's fair. I'd probably do the same thing in your situation, Amir. Kane is still a great option long term. He really is. He's kind of a steady choice. He's not that explosive most of the time, but he is capable of some big returns. Shocking news during the international break prediction. I'm not too aware of like the fixtures. I only know some South American ones, so I wouldn't be able to tell you. I kind of want to double up with Maddison and Bruno, but then I have to transfer out Kane. Yeah, I just said that, sorry. Diogo says Kane, Odegaard, Zinchenko to Isak, Salah, Shaw from -4. Yes, good stuff. Really like the fact that Isak has a double game week in the next 3, or 2 double game weeks in the next 3, most likely, and his XG per 90 is ridiculous. That is true. I'm not so sure why in recent weeks. I think we discussed with a Newcastle fan in the deadline stream, the fact that Wilson was starting games over him, and I think it's just because of fitness, easing him back in and avoiding any aggravations to injuries. But yeah, Isak is looking good, and he made a difference on Friday. Yeah, I think those transfers look really, really solid. I do prefer potentially the likes of Maddison or Bruno over Salah, but we can't forget over the last 5 game weeks, Salah's been the highest scoring midfielder in the game. We can't forget that. And beyond the away fixtures in 29, I think he can do really well, even against Arsenal and in the games afterwards. To get Haaland back, wouldn't you have to transfer Saka to Maddison? No, I don't think that's an issue. I've played around with some transfers, and if I, for example, do Odegaard to Maddison, and I bring in a Stupinian in for Zinchenko, I'd have more than enough money to bring in Haaland for Tony. So it's definitely not an issue. I've got like 7 million in the bank after all, so 11 matches left in the Prem. How do you think it will end? Well, 10 for the likes of Arsenal. I mean, I don't know. It's so tricky to call. For me, United will still comfortably finish top 4. I think they'll finish 3rd. In terms of 4th, it's anyone's game. I don't think anyone is that consistent. I think with Liverpool, they're the only team that can win 5 or 6 in a row, as they have done recently. But what Liverpool do struggle with is away games, and that's their kryptonite. If they had a better away form, I'd be convinced about them in 4th position. I think Newcastle have a chance, but for me, they don't get enough wins, and I could see them maybe drawing a few games against some lower opposition, and they've also got some tough games like Arsenal at home. So when I look at it, I think Newcastle won't finish top 4, and I think it will be between Liverpool and Spurs for 4th. If I had to pick one, I think because of the whole situation with Conte, and I think that could really turn out sour, I'd probably back Liverpool for 4th. But honestly, they need to fix their away form. They really do. I just had a gut feeling Spurs would have a Spursy performance. Yeah, I mean, Spurs always have that in them. Every single season, even last year when they did relatively well, they still had, losing to Southampton at home. I think they lost to Wolves at home as well. They always had these games in them. Which young midfielder, in your opinion, can compare with Enzo at his age range? Bellingham, definitely Bellingham. And I'd say Bellingham is probably better as well. I think Caicedo is also comparable. I think Enzo's better as well, but once again, comparable. Best double game week defender to replace Zinchenko in 29. Best one, I think Estupinian or Shaw would be up there. Or go for a double game week midfielder by selling Saka. I'd rather sell Zinchenko. Saka's a better option for sure. Do you think Rashford already reached his peak form? Rashford's a streaky player. He always has been, even when he was scoring every single game. I said this, it's not a surprise for anyone that's seen him over the years. He's still a good player. He can do really well in 29 and up until the end of the season. So I'd still look to captain him in 29. But yeah, has he reached his absolute peak? Maybe. I mean, he's 26, 27. I think the next year or two, I think that's where he'll reach his absolute big level. Sell Odegaard for sell Odegaard for McAllister or March, or sell Saka for Fernandes. I'd sell Odegaard to McAllister or March, and I prefer March still. Thank you for the super chat, A and B. Watkins would have got 15 plus easy. Yeah, Aston Villa scored 3 goals. Watkins only gets an assist. At least he got something. At least he did, but yeah, Watkins is a bit of a troll, honestly. That does sum him up a bit well. Taking a -12, is it bad? I mean, it is the biggest double game week of the season. 12 teams are doubling. It's not the worst, decision in the world. If there was ever a week to take a -12, it's now. Would I do it? If possible, no. But look, it might make sense in your situation. So on to Bruno or Rashford. I still prefer Rashford. And it also gives you some money in the bank. Thoughts on Iheanacho? I'm stuck with him and Ward. Look, I said this even heading into the deadline. I like Iheanacho. Whenever he starts, he has a good record in the Premier League for City and for Leicester. The big problem with him is that Rodgers, kind of treats him unfairly, you could argue, and he always tends to bench him every now and then. I never expected it to happen in 28, but it did. So what are my thoughts of him? Probably sell, and you could even go to Isak. It could be a blessing in disguise in your situation. Who's your captain for 29? I mean, it's early days and we've got an international break. A lot can change, but right now it is Rashford. Saka, the 1 week you shouldn't have returned big. You did just that. Yeah, I mean, Saka did well for me in game week 27, where he got two, was it 27? I can't even remember now. No, it was 25. He got two decent returns, across both games. Wait, was it like that? I can't remember now at this point. Maybe it was a big return against Everton. Yeah, I think it was that. Look, Saka, he's been consistent all season. It was a good captaincy choice. I don't think he was the absolute best on paper and the overwhelming favourite, but he ended up being the highest scoring, 18 points, and you've got to give people who captain him credit. But yeah, it is a bit frustrating, I think, for non-Saka captainers. Do you see Salah essential? No. I actually, oddly enough, I'd say Salah's more appealing as an option after game week 29 because the away record for Liverpool is a big concern. They lost to Bournemouth, who now just lost to Aston Villa 3-0. It's a big concern. Bruno's a must for me in 29 and rest of the season, so already moved for Odegaard. That's fair, but did you really need to make that move now? If you are going to be absolutely priced out and you want Bruno, fair enough, but I still think it's risky. Look, it's not a bad decision necessarily. It can just, backfire, as we all know. Defenders this week were awful. Only Aston Villa got a clean sheet. Yeah, I thought Bournemouth would score. And if you check the recent record between Aston Villa and Bournemouth, it's actually been very shaky from Villa's perspective at home. So yeah, I thought it would be like 2-1, maybe 3-1 for Villa. But there you go. And I think those that have Villa defenders were laughing this week. Dylan, who are your must-haves on a wildcard this week? I don't like the term must-haves. And also, with the amount of options and with the lack of standouts, I don't think there really is one. But my favourites on the wildcard would be Rashford. I'd say Maddison. I still like Saka, to be quite frank, but I'm not so sure if he's really the one to have on the wildcard this week. Bright midfielders like Matoma, March. You've also got Bruno Fernandes, James Maddison up front. Maybe I'd even consider the likes of Isak, be a bit more open-minded there, especially with Tony now literally on the cusp of a suspension. So yeah, Isak, and I think the other two would be, I think still, I'd probably say Watkins and one of Haaland or Harry Kane. And to be fair, you could even go for both still, with the amount of money you probably have in the bank. In the back line, Estupinian, Trippier, Luke Shaw, and I think the others maybe an Aston Villa defender as well. I don't think I'd go for a double up in Newcastle right now. And the other defender, who could even go for here? It's a tricky one. Probably Chilwell as well. And then in the back, or the goalkeepers, I'd say, Ryan Kepa still fairly decent. What level is Rashford at now? I mean, he's one of the best wingers in the league this season. In all competitions, he's done really well. But I don't know. I mean, when people say he's like a contender for the Ballon d'Or, that's not just one step too far. It's many steps. Selsinchenko or Henry in 29? I'd rather Selsinchenko. What to do with Ward? I'd sell. De Gea is decent, but it depends. Because if you want to triple up in United, my favourite is Shaw, Bruno and Rashford. Then again, if you don't need a defender or midfielder transfer, in that case, go for De Gea. I think he's a great choice. And also more of a differential maybe. Kane or Odegaard? I'd actually start Kane, if that's what you're asking. Is Martinelli a good differential? I wouldn't call him a differential. He's got like 20-30% ownership. When will the double game weeks be updated on the app? I mean, they tend to take a bit long. I'm not sure exactly when, but yeah, literally after confirmation of double game weeks, it'd be a day or two normally. Thoughts about City versus Bayern in Champions League? I think Bayern have the edge. I think City are a better team overall, funnily enough, but Bayern have been very consistent in the Champions League. They've got the mentality, which I don't think City quite yet have in that competition. So yeah, I'd still favour Bayern, and ultimately I think Madrid will win the Champions League. So yeah, that will be a bit boring, but They have the edge, they have the mentality, and they have the experience of winning these trophies. Vinicius versus Rashford, I still think Vinicius is better. Let's be honest, Vinicius is a better player. Now, look, they have some similarities, but I think Vinicius has a bit more to his game overall. And in terms of 1v1s, you know, there's not many players better than Vinicius right now in the world. So I think Vinicius and Messi have like the most dribbles completed, you know, in this season, I think, in the league, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, Vinicius is the better player. The thing is, though, when you look at his league record, Vinicius doesn't have that many goals, which is quite surprising. Ward, Kane, Saka, Mings, a good bench boost? Yes. I mean, you've got Kane against Everton. He loves to play against them. Saka against Leeds. Ward is the problem. I don't even see him starting, and if he does, I don't see points, but the rest looks great. I'd probably get rid of Ward, and the rest looks fine. El Clasico says Lungani. Yes. Yes, it is. I might have a look very soon. Do you think Napoli wins Champions League? No. I think they have a chance, of course. They're in the top 3 or 4 favourites, especially with their run to the final, but I think they reach the final and lose. That's my personal opinion. You know, in the years gone by, when I've seen the likes of City reach a Champions League final for the first time, Arsenal as well, you know, they never really tend to win the competition. It tends to be the more experienced club, you know, the one with the history that tends to win it. So, yeah, I don't think they will. Bayern's a better knockout team. Yeah, and also a better defence, you could argue. I mean, City in the last month, you know, they haven't conceded a goal, and they've suddenly looked more solid, but still think they concede a bit too many chances against Newcastle, for example, a bit lucky against Palace to win. So, yeah, they still have some vulnerabilities, but you have to say City have come into form at the right time. Walter Iverson for me, because I can't go above 4 million. Fair enough. I mean, honestly, Mackenzie, if you have a Brighton slot available, just go for Steele. I think that's the way to go. Do I think they start in Game Week 29? Yes, Bridgerton. Do I think they're nailed until the end of the season? I can't tell you that. My guess would be yes, especially in Steele's case. But yeah, if you're asking for someone to have on the bench boost in 29, yes, I'd be confident with either one. I'd definitely go for Steele. Is Trent the worst 1v1 right back? I mean, I don't know every right back in the world, but he's one of the worst of the high-profile names. Look, Trent is a great player in terms of his technique. We all know this going forward. He's amazing, but he's always lacked that defensive nous, and I don't think you'll ever get it. For me, PS5, but then again, I don't think either console has been great. There's not that many games, you know, since these consoles have launched, so we're still waiting for that. Selling Kane for Isak for Game Week 29 and getting Salah and Haaland for 30 and above. I mean, that's sensible. It's understandable. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And it makes sense. I think getting Salah and 30 might be the best decision for you as well, but I have to say, I still like Kane. I probably would still rather have him over Salah until the end of the season. I think Kane has just been so consistent, and with Salah, you know, yes, he can, you know, haul in 4 or 5 games in a row, but then he can go missing for 4 or 5 this season. So I hate to go on international break with a red arrow. Yes, I mean, same here. It's not ideal. I think my main frustration is just these kind of small details going the other way, but that's how it could be. Yeah, of course, Napoli can win Champions League, but I have to be honest, I think it's going to be Real Madrid or Bayern. And I'd actually say even Man City, if it was a Man City-Napoli final, I'd actually back Man City to win it. Raya, Saka, Maddison, Bruno and Shaw, good bench boost? you know the answer to that, mate. It's a really good bench boost. Another third option from United, if not enough money for Bruno. Well, in that case, it'd be Rashford, Shaw and De Gea, and I'd go for that double up defensively, potentially. But in terms of attackers, I wouldn't go for Anthony. I wouldn't go for Weghorst and anyone else you can name, really. So, yeah, if it's not Bruno Fernandes, then I'd just go for the defence or goalkeeper. My Chinese has taken over an hour and 40 minutes to get here so far. What's this about? Oh, your Chinese food. I was thinking, what, are you learning the language? I don't have a slot, unfortunately. Unlucky, Mackenzie. Unlucky. I bought Saka at 8 million and he's now worth 8.6. Is he worth selling for Bruno? I think it is a worthwhile sell to go to Bruno, but would I sell him personally? No. I'd actually rather go for Odegaard out at the moment. It could backfire in 29, but long term it should be the right move. Odegaard to Maddison or McAllister? Maddison for me. Thoughts on Osimhen going to the Prem next season? Well, if he does, we all know the most likely clubs are United and Chelsea. I hope he doesn't go. I think United will be the better move for him. I think Chelsea, I don't know, there's this thing with Chelsea strikers, you know, not really hitting the ground running, just really struggling to acclimatise to the team. And also, I think United have a better project right now, of course. I think Chelsea in 2 or 3 years will be much better, and they have some really good young players, but I think right now it's a bit of a mess there. So Yeah, I think if you were to go to a Prem club, I think United's the most likely, and it would be a decent move for both parties. But why not stay at Napoli? You know, he could become a real hero. You know, win the Serie A this season, maybe a Champions League down the line. I mean, why not? My bench boost team: Raya, Meslier, Trent, James, Chilwell, Henry, Cash, Rashford, Bowen, Matoma, McAllister, Saka, Tony, Felix, Watkins. Yeah, looks really solid. Not much wrong with it. Look, Meslier, I think he became the youngest goalkeeper to reach 100 appearances for a goalkeeper in the Premier League. But yeah, Leeds defensively are awful. A big win for them yesterday, but they still leak in too many goals. Trent, obviously, we all know the problems with him and Liverpool on their travels, but I do like some of your picks there. You know, Cash is looking decent right now. James and Chilwell combination could be nice in some game weeks. Bowen's nice differential potentially. Yeah, I think the big concern for you would be Tony with the yellow cards. And yeah, for me, Meslier is a big kind of weakness, but the rest looks fantastic. You should get a good score. You know, if you don't get triple digits, I'd be shocked. I got 62 of 8 players, forgot to do transfers, which would have been Haaland to Isak and Trent to Chilwell. Wow. I mean, Chilwell didn't really, I mean, actually, that could be a blessing in disguise, the fact you didn't go for Chilwell, but if you got Isak in, wow, that would have been a big difference. Chelsea jokes incoming. I went to the kitchen wearing a Chelsea jersey and I couldn't lift a cup. Oh my God. I mean, you can still lift the Champions League this season, which would be awful. But yeah, I think Chelsea next season, you know, kind of an early prediction, I think Chelsea could win a trophy, but it depends on who the manager is and the whole situation. Do you think FPL right now is boring? Yeah, I said this last week, even when I got a green arrow. I'll say it now with a red arrow. I do think it's a bit boring. I think it just really comes down to the captaincy choices sometimes and stuff like this. So I think from now on, I'm going to try to be more open-minded when it comes to certain players. You know, when someone recommends someone, I think that might be something I've been wrong about in the past. I think it is good to sometimes be different, not for the sake of it, but I think the main appeal in FPL is to find these differentials that can make the difference, and that's going to be the aim from now until the end of the season. When do you think is the best time to use triple captain from here? If you're not using bench boost, I'd say now, in 29 on someone like Rashford. If not, you're looking at 34. What's the most hits you would take in a bench boost? Probably a -12. I think anything more is probably excessive. A -12 is the absolute maximum I would go for. And the main reason why is because we have 12 doubles, which is the biggest double Gameweek of the season. I couldn't believe Chelsea had been trying so hard to defend their place in the Premier League. I mean, Chelsea are never in relegation. You know, they're not in this kind of discussion, unfortunately. Brentford defenders for double Gameweek? Brian for sure. The problem with Brian is they have bad fixtures in 30 and 31, but they could have a double as well, very likely. So, yeah, I'd rather go for Brian, and I go for Stupinian. Yes, I think so. Yeah, I mean, Kepa's still a good option, don't get me wrong, but potentially, I think Brian have a better defensive team than Chelsea right now. So, Sanchez played well today in the Cup. Yeah, he did, but still, he's playing against Grimsby, low competition, with no disrespect to them. And also, with Steele, they've gotten some good results in the Premier League, so it would be a bit harsh to just suddenly drop him. Then again, you could argue the same thing a few weeks ago when Sanchez was dropped. But there you go. So yeah, let me know if you've got any more questions. I'll go through them. Rico Henry to Shaw or Chilwell? I think based on the performances today, I mean, you have to look beyond that, but you know, when I've watched Chelsea recently, Chilwell has been basically playing as a left winger in this back three formation once again, and Chilwell playing in this system is going to be a great FPL option pretty much. The big concern is minutes. Shaw has that over him, and also less kind of injury prone, you could argue. So I'd actually rather go for Chilwell, but Shaw's definitely the safer pick. You know, I have to say that. Wonder what's with Stupinian coming off at half-time. I think the Zerbi actually made a comment on that. He said that Stupinian didn't play that well, so he decided to take him off. Not gonna lie, good time for a break. 2 weeks for me to work on the best Swedish league fantasy team. Fair enough, Amir. Fair enough. Yeah, I think the 2-week break is actually pretty good as well for me. I think we all need a bit of a break. Maybe not all of us. Those with a green arrow might be a bit like City as well, you know, breaking that momentum potentially. But honestly, the 2 weeks could do us a lot of good. I got 51 points this week. Should I take a hit because these extra points I got? Not necessarily. I'd only take hits, you know, if you're bringing in players of real good quality with good doubles or great long-term fixtures. It depends on the players you sell and buy, Zach. It's not just about, you know, I wouldn't use that logic when making hits or making transfers. Zinchenko or Ben Mee to Shaw? I'd rather sell Zinchenko. What do you think about Areola in? Good fixtures in 29, but I don't see many clean sheets for West Ham. I said this back in 25. I think once West Ham got a big win, I think it was against Forest, around that period. They suddenly had some decent fixtures coming up, and we're all talking about West Ham assets. And I just said I don't see clean sheets, and it hasn't happened yet. So look, he's not a bad choice, but I think De Gea, Steele, Raya, I was going to say Sanchez there, Raya, Kepa, Pope, they're all better options for me. How many Blank Gameweek 32 players would you bring in? I don't have my free hit and already have triple Brighton and Rashford, Haaland, Chilwell and Kepa. Well, that could be an issue for you, Sebastian, of course, but you do have the transfers in 30 and 31 to rectify that. And so with a -4, you could make something quite bearable by the time you get to that Blank Gameweek. So yeah, on top of what you have already and the likely blankers in 32, I think, yeah, maybe add 1 or 2 more max. You don't want to go too overboard because you could set yourself up for a really tricky situation later on. But there you go. Yeah, fair enough, Diogo. I mean, to be honest, I don't really care about Barcelona Madrid nowadays. I don't think it's, the games aren't that interesting to me as they once were. I got 51 points. Yeah, we covered. Do you think Ward will start in the next game? No. I said this was still as well, and so far he has rung true. But look, you never know quite what is going on in the mentality of these managers, but in my opinion, I think Iverson starts once again. A positive result against Brentford away. Leicester would have taken that, heading into the game. So yeah, I think Iverson will keep his place. I've been unlucky this season. I think a lot of us could say that. I mean, you're always going to have moments of luck and, unluckiness, but there you go. When do I bring Haaland back in? I would bring him back in, and probably in Game Week 30, but you can make a case for bringing him back in 29 for Ivan Toney as well. I'd probably go for 30 though. Do you think Bruno plays deeper now with McTominay playing really bad, or does Fred come in? That's a good question. I think ultimately it will be Fred and Sabitzer as the kind of holding players in Casemiro's absence, and Bruno will have a bit more license to go forward. But, compared to when Casemiro's there, yes, he will have more defensive duties, I would say. But, I mean, look at today. He got a big return against Fulham. Obviously, you could say it's fortunate or what, but that Bruno can do that, and he has a great ceiling in 29 and also in some of the games coming up. Saka and Odegaard to Fernandes and McAllister for a -4. It's a good hit. I think it will pay off in 29, but long term, I'd keep Saka and I'd sell Odegaard. I'm at 1.4 million for my first season. Is it bad? Look, it's all relative. We all have different goals and stuff like that. I mean, I think it's a decent, if you're just starting and you have absolutely no idea about FPL, I think it's a decent start, and always you can improve and you can learn a lot from this season. And then in next year, you can do even better. I think you could easily, target a top 1 million finish, top 500k, or even higher. There's not much difference between where you are and some of the ranks that I just mentioned. Kane to Isak or Saka to McAllister? That's a great question. I'd actually rather do Saka to McAllister, but maybe I'm being a bit stubborn there. I could be wrong about that one, but my initial thoughts is Saka to McAllister is slightly better. Bruno playing Eriksen role after McTominay subbed out. Yeah, I mean, that is a possible thing as well. But in my opinion, once we get back from the international break, it'll be Fred and Sabitzer. And I don't see McTominay starting. But look, there's so many things that can happen. And even when Bruno plays deeper, he can return. I think Raya won't keep a clean sheet in any of the games. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. If you have him at hold, if I didn't have him, I'd probably go elsewhere. I think you've kind of nailed it there. I got 44 points, Son replacement, double game at 29. Fernandes, really good like for like, around a similar price. But yeah, it depends. If you don't have Rashford, I'd rather go for him. You've also got, the likes of McAllister, March, Matoma. There's many options, Maddison. But I think Bruno or Maddison is up there. I late changed Saka to Kane after 120 minutes versus Sporting. Disappointed. Sell Dallo for -4. Honestly, I don't think that's a bad choice. It's once again a case of decent decision, bad outcome. And look, Kane's still got a return. I don't think any of us expected Saka to get 18 points. Once again, before today, 2 double-digit returns, and you had sound logic with that. I think that was another reason why I got put off. Just to clarify, he didn't play the full 120 minutes versus Sporting, but he played a big part of that. I think 80 minutes or something. So, yeah, I think you're a bit unlucky there. Sell Dallo for a -4. I'd say so. I think Wan-Bissaka is the preferred choice right now. Davis and Zena to James and Shaw. Those transfers look fairly solid. Yeah, but I'd also sell Dallo for a -4, and I'd probably go to Estupinian. Yeah, I feel like I want to sell Toney for Haaland this week, but Toney hauls against big teams. Yeah, I still think it's worthwhile though. I still think long term, because I'm looking to sell him anyway in 30 or 31, I think it's a good transfer. Are we all pulling the trigger early today and bringing Haaland back in for Tony? No. I would possibly wait, you know, close to the deadline I'd do it, but right now, no. I have to say though, I am really considering it. Rather than going for Isak, who might be a great differential, and a few others like that, I think I might do it, but not now. Me to Shaw, yeah. For free, I'd definitely do it, Mutalib. For a hit, I'm not so sure. I'd actually rather get rid of Zinchenko or an Arsenal defender. Araujo own goal, there you go. Didn't last long. I'm thinking of switching Zinchenko, Odegaard, and Saka to Shaw, Fernandes, and McAllister. Once again, I think it's a good hit. You know, I think they'll all pay off in 29, but I wouldn't sell Saka. That's just my personal opinion. There was, if I remember correctly, there was one chance where Rico Henry did a cross, found Mbeumo in a lot of space, and Mbeumo just about missed the target with a finesse shot with his left foot. So he came slightly close. Maybe had a few other promising moments, but that was the kind of main thing that stood out to me. Best double gameweek keepers, in my opinion, we're probably looking at Kepa. I'd say Nick Pope as well, but you know what? I'd probably say, you know what? I'm going to go for De Gea there. Yeah, I think that's the way I'd go, and you'll see. You know, my plan is to do some content as well for Double Gameweek 29, of course, with videos and streams. That is going to be the aim. I'll try my best to do it, and if there is content very soon, you'll see my best free hit team, best wildcard team, and I think my current preference is Kepa, and I'll probably go that way. Yeah. Is Ward out for Leicester? Well, I think Iverson keeps his place, and honestly, Ward is not going to get you points anyway. Isak for Kane. I'd still keep Kane, but it's not a bad transfer, and Isak is looking very promising. If he can stay fit, which is the big question mark, then yeah. But Newcastle still aren't the greatest defensively, and sometimes they do look to shut out teams and keep clean sheets rather than going for those goals, which obviously is a concern. But yeah, Isak is the best Newcastle offensive player right now for sure. Oh, of course, we know this, and he could also hit the post or the crossbar. What do you predict will be Rashford's EO? Tough to say. I don't know exactly what the sentiment is on Rashford right now, but I'd say over 150%. I think he'll be the most captain option, and there'll be a big gap between him and second place, but not the biggest we've seen this season. I think Raya's not going to get any clean sheets, but he can still easily get 6 or 7 points. That I agree, Sebastian. Yeah, I think 5-6 points is quite reasonable for Raya. I don't think he keeps a clean sheet either. Ward versus Karius is the worst. Ward, I think. Karius might be a bit unlucky because, you know, we all know him for that performance. I mean, he's facing one of the best, you know, Champions League teams of all time. And, you know, players like Benzema, Ronaldo, Bale. Yeah, obviously the mistakes he made were unforgivable. But, yeah, Ward is just consistently terrible. I'd probably say he's worse. Who'll be your Gameweek 29 captain? I'm considering Fernandes. Yeah, that's a good shout. Probably Rashford right now. But if I bring in Fernandes, I might go for something a bit different because I'm a bit sick of, you know, the template and all that. With this form, I'm really contemplating Tony back to Erling and Odegaard to Martinelli. Other options would be Botman or Henry out for perhaps a Fulham defender. Yeah, I mean, Fulham have had a really good season overall, but it does look like they're kind of tailing off a little bit. They were lucky today, but having said that, I still wouldn't go for their defenders. They had that period after the World Cup where they kept 3 clean sheets in a row. I don't think I'd go for a Fulham defender personally. In spite of the fixtures or whatever else you could maybe argue. But yeah, I think those transfers you mentioned are good. I'm not sure I'd do Odegaard to Martinelli though. I'd actually rather just go for Maddison. What's the best midfield mix for a bench boost double game week? Yeah, I mean, that 5 looks great, but, you know, you've also got Maddison, who is definitely up there. I'd probably bring him in for Martinelli, and a few others would be a second Brighton midfielder as well, and Bruno Fernandes. My favourite 5... you know, on a wildcard, for example, would probably be Saka, Matoma, Rashford, Bruno Fernandes, and Maddison, if I didn't mention him already. Maybe I did. My mind's all over the place. Martinelli's really benefiting from that rest. Yes, I mean, I think the main benefit to Martinelli is Trossard, honestly, because if you look at Martinelli with Nketiah, he was absolutely awful as an FPL option, but Trossard has completely changed that, and they link up very well. Who should I take out from Martinelli, Saka? It's close. I can understand why you're confused, but I'd probably rather get rid of Martinelli. Is Stupinian subbed off for half-time in FA Cup? Yeah, exactly. That's exactly the comments he made. I think I said something about the he didn't perform well enough. That's basically what he said, Deceptive. Who should I take out from Martinelli Saka? We covered. Sanchez and Zinchenko to De Gea and Shaw -4. Yeah, I think that looks good, especially if you don't want Bruno. Bear in mind, if you want Bruno and Rashford, then it does make sense to go for another goalkeeper instead of De Gea. But yeah, I think that -4 looks pretty good. Sure, I only say Fulham because they're versus Bournemouth. Yeah, fair enough, but if you're going for a defender from Fulham, I mean, it's very unlikely for them to get attacking returns. And as for a clean sheet, I can see Bournemouth scoring, potentially. Best Mikalenko replacement? I'm not sure of your team, Wei Seng. I know you have Chilwell, that's it. I'd say Shaw Estupinian would be up there. Is anybody considering taking Tony out? Yes. Yes, Luke, definitely. With him currently working the suspension tightrope and also not having favourable fixtures. And also, there's a fixture swing after 33, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I'm considering it. Do you agree that Brentford defenders are a must-sell for this double game week? I mean, I don't see clean sheets for them or points in general, but I don't know. I'm not sure if they're a must-sell. If I could, if I had the option to sell them for free, I would. Let me put it that way. Keep Henry, Pinnock, or upgrade to Shaw. I'd upgrade to Shaw, if you can. Game Week 29 captaincy options. It's early, but I'd put the likes of Rashford, Bruno Fernandes, Matoma, Solly March in the mix. I'm not sure if I'd captain Isak, but he could be a nice differential. Maddison as well. But yeah, I think my main ones would be the United and Brighton midfielders. Yeah, Xhaka played really well today. I think in the last 2 or 3 games, he's performed excellently. Before that, he had a bit of a blip. Some pretty poor performances where even the likes of myself were calling for him to be benched, get a rest. But as you can see, Vieira is clearly not good enough to start yet. Is this the best game week for a bench boost? I think for most people, yeah. 12 doubles. You're not going to get more than that from now until the end of the season. And you've also got some great fixtures there for some top teams. I have a midfielder, Matoma, Salah, Rashford, Fernandes, March. Yep. Arguably the best midfield 5 you can have. I think Maddison's kind of the main absentee, but you can't have everyone. It looks good. Odegaard to Matoma and Gabriel to Shaw, all for a -4. Yep, I would do it. Yeah, no hesitations whatsoever. So hard to get into top 100k. Thinking of taking a -8 for Sanchez, Saka and Odegaard to Bruno De Gea and March and McAllister, but sets up team nicely as United got doubles coming up. Yeah, no, it is tricky. But there's not much to separate all of us, Chris, from where I am to where you are, or those higher or below. Yeah, those transfers look pretty solid, to be fair. I have no problems with them whatsoever. And I'd go for March over McAllister. Not much to separate them, but March is my preference. My initial thinking from last week was Fernandes. I'll stick with that, but Maddison's really good too. I think this could be the week where when I get 550 points, it's possible. I mean, this is the most likely on paper, purely based on the amount of games, but you never know. There's always disappointments in FPL. Need to go for 1 or 2 differentials. Everyone literally has the same team. Yeah, that's why. I mean, it's kind of tricky because you also look at these players like Isak, who is a differential right now, but, if he didn't haul against Nottingham Forest, I don't think anyone would really be putting him in discussion, of course. But yeah, I do agree with you. I'm also looking for that as well, potentially. I think it's quite clear. Midfield, I think the left area where Xhaka is, he's done well this season, but he needs competition. If Xhaka's out, I'm telling you, the downgrade from him to Vieira is massive. Arsenal, I think, mainly need cover in most areas, but look, I might be a bit harsh. I think Ramsdale's a decent goalkeeper, but especially if Arsenal want to win a cup, go far in that, I think Ramsdale could be improved on. So there's a few areas, really. I think another kind of backup centre-back, a backup full-back, left centre midfielder, defensive midfielder, and goalkeeper, I think, would be the key areas. There's always room for improvement. Arsenal aren't perfect, that's for sure. I guess, but Newcastle haven't kept a clean sheet. No, exactly that. I wouldn't want to go for a double up in Newcastle defence right now. I have Shaw, Chilwell, Henry, Mikalenko, and White. Yeah, that looks fine. I think Mikalenko's the only weak point. Yeah, Shaw, Chilwell, and, well, those two look really good. The rest, maybe you could say one thing or the other. White's a good kind of season keeper. Not great for this week, but there you go. As an Arsenal fan, I think he could provide great insight into which Arsenal assets to keep or buy. Well, Trossard's been great, but apart from that one game against Fulham, I don't think he's the most explosive, at least so far, with Arsenal, and he's playing more of a creative role. So, in terms of Arsenal assets, how would I rank them? It'd be Saka first, Martinelli second, I'd still say Odegaard third, but he's been so frustrating in recent weeks. And that purple patch he had in December, January, it's long gone. I don't see him doing that again. If he does, that'd be great. It helps in the title fight. But yeah, really, I think Saka and Martinelli are, on another level right now. And I think the key reason is Trossard. Without that, if it was still Nketiah up front, I don't think Martinelli's the second best Arsenal option. Which three would you ideally have for the upcoming 2 or 3 game weeks? That's a good question. I'll be honest, I don't think Arsenal keep a clean sheet against Leeds. I simply don't. I could see a 3-1 in that game, for example. I look at Liverpool. I think Arsenal can see 2 or 3. I'll be honest. I think that could be a tricky game. So I don't really like the defenders. I really don't. So yeah, if I had to recommend, 3, it's Martinelli, Saka, and then the third option would maybe reluctantly be someone like Ben White, someone like that. But honestly, yeah, I don't see clean sheets for Arsenal. Who's blanking in 32? So the likes of Man United, Man City, all these teams in the FA Cup with these conflicts will be blanking in 32, which we've discussed as well beforehand. Brighton's another one as well. All these teams reaching the FA Cup semi-finals. Top 3 captaincy picks. Obviously, we're a few weeks away, but I think Rashford's up there. I'd probably rank it Rashford first. Maybe I'd personally go for I'll go for Bruno Fernandes second and a Bright midfielder third, and my preference is Mitoma. 14 doublers and Saka can't wait. It looks good on paper. What could possibly go wrong? But don't tempt FPL. That'll be my main advice. Kepa or Steele or Ramsdale? Kepa. What is the current template must have at the moment? I don't like these kind of terms, especially in a season where everyone's the exact same, it looks like. But Haaland, we all know he's kind of a must-have, whether you get him in now or in 30. Rashford, for me, is up there. So yeah, Rashford, Saka, a bright midfielder like Mitoma. In defence, you're probably looking at Trippier, Stupinian, Shaw. Forwards, yeah, Haaland, Kane, typical stuff there, really. Yeah, those are the kind of template picks, the essential ones, you could argue. So Mikalenko to who? Yeah, I have to check your team again because I don't remember your 5 defenders. Your 5 defenders, I think Estupinian or Shaw were the ones I recommended. So yeah, I think they will do nicely. Yeah, one of those 2 will be fine. Absolutely agree about Ramsdale. I get anxiety watching us defend corners. Look, I don't want to be harsh on him because even today, made a great save, made a great one against Bournemouth. These potentially save points and could win Arsenal the title. But when I went into that penalty shoot against Sporting, and I know it's only Europa League, I don't really care about it, but I never had the confidence he would save a penalty. And that's a big thing. I don't think even he believed he would save a penalty. He had 2 hands on one of them and he still lets it in. And even for the goal, you could say I'm really harsh because it's a great goal by Pedro Goncalves, whatever his name is, but I'm sorry, what is the point of Ramsdale being so high up? What does that actually, gain Arsenal? I really don't get it. So, look, he's a good goalkeeper, but if you're looking for ways to improve, I think he is one of them. That's just my personal opinion. Selling Tony for Isak, his double is not great, and the yellow cards is a problem. That's fair enough. I'll be honest, this is something I wouldn't have considered a week or 2 ago, but with all these circumstances, I may do the same thing, or go for another forward entirely, like Haaland back in straight away. It could, honestly, I think it'll be a gradual progression. And with Jesus, we've now got options. You've got 2 or 3 kind of forwards playing for those 2 spots. Saka's always going to play on the right-hand side. So really, even Martinelli could come into the equation. Jesus can do really well on the wing. But I still think Trossard, I think he'll start in game week 29 as things stand. But going forwards, I think 60, 70 minutes max. And there will be times when he's benched. Should I keep Salah or downgrade to Fernandes Maddison? I'd keep Salah because I really like him from 30 to 38. Yeah, no, he's not the biggest differential, but his ownership is quite low compared to years gone by. Start Arsenal players this game week with single or players with double, but more difficult fixtures. It really depends on the players with doubles. It really depends. If you're talking about Brian, Man United players, I'd start them. But if you're talking about Brentford defenders, even Ivan Toney, I'd actually be tempted to go for Arsenal players over them, which sounds crazy, but that's my opinion. I want to have differentials, but they just don't fit into the midfield. March, McAllister, Bruno Maddison, Rashford, Mitoma, and Saka almost must-have attackers. Yeah, that's fair enough. Well, from the players you mentioned, Sebastian, if you want differentials, Isak is one of them. You can bring him in for Toney. You also, when you look at the midfield, Maddison's still got quite low ownership, around 10%. You could also go for March, who's got around 9% ownership. So there are some opportunities there for you. Yeah, Kat, I definitely wouldn't. I wouldn't recommend that because, I mean, you can even see with my wildcard so far hasn't really gone to plan. I mean, from when I wildcarded to now, I have gotten a green arrow, but it's still a bit underwhelming. So maybe Zinchenko out for a Shaw? Yeah. Yeah, I think I'd rather just go to Shaw Goldhead or Stupinian. Yeah, Wei Seng. I mean, we've got an international break anyway, so that was always the plan. I'm going to try get some content out throughout the week, some early videos, you know, even a team selection potentially. Have that already. And if the internet is stable where I'm going, because I'm going to be there for like a month, if it is stable, I will do streams. But if it isn't, and it's not worth it, then yeah, you'll find out, of course. Short or Stupinian? Great question. I actually slightly favour Stupinian. Just a little bit more. Shaw has better fixtures than 30 and 31, but Estupinian could have a double in that period. And I think Brian, I don't know. I think the fixtures in 29 are also a bit better. So yeah, Estupinian. Trippier, I'd still keep him, but he has been so annoying recently. Honestly, he's been awful. It's kind of surprising because he literally went from absolutely must-have, play him every week, even if he's playing Man City away, to, yeah, to be honest, I'd be happy to sell him or bench him. Maybe some defender differentials, but Stupinian, Chilwell, Trippier, Newcastle defender, Arsenal defender, Raya and Kepa. I mean, that looks like one of the best defenses you can build. I agree with you, but you could also add a few names into the mix, you know, like Luke Shaw. You're also looking at maybe a Villa defender. They've been decent recently, but yeah, on paper, that looks like the best one. The thing is with Arsenal defenders, I actually wouldn't go for them on the wildcard right now. I don't think it makes sense. You know, you've got so many doublets in 29. Arsenal face Leeds at home, and honestly, I think they will concede. Liverpool away, you've got Man City, Newcastle away, Chelsea at home. There's some tough games there for Arsenal, so I don't see that many clean sheets. So yeah, I wouldn't go for the Arsenal defender. The rest I agree with. Zinchenko's been underwhelming for me. Yeah, he's not gotten one haul for me. Not one. Should have got one today, but there you go. Yeah, I mean, I even said this before I got Zinchenko and I had White. For me, White is a decent option. There's not much to separate all of them. Gabriel is the best for goals, Saliba arguably for bonus points, Zinchenko for assists, and then Ben White just for being subbed off early. There's like a pro for each one of them and cons, but yeah, honestly, White is probably the best value option. I agree. Tony will prove everyone wrong. He could do, maybe. Worth playing Kane and Haaland with 9 doublers as a differential? Yeah, I think it is worth it. I mean, Haaland against Liverpool could easily get a big haul. Harry Kane as well against Everton. It is worth it. Is Rodrigo a good differential? I mentioned him actually in the deadline stream. He's my favourite Leeds midfielder. He didn't start the game, but came off the bench and scored at the end. Yeah, he's my favourite Leeds player from an FPL perspective. Then it's probably Harrison. So yeah, he is a good differential. Arsenal midfielders would be big money next season. Yeah, probably 9-10 million. What's the vacation location? I'm going Argentina. Yeah, it's a family visit. Okay, so this, if it wasn't for that, I'd still be in, in the UK. Cash could be something, or go big or go RIP. Yeah, I mean that kind of sums up Aston Villa defenders in general and all these options. We have mentioned differentials already in the stream. Isak, Bruno Fernandes, Luke Shaw. I mean, I'm not sure exactly what his ownership is, but I'm guessing it's not that low. Tyrone Mings, Kurt Zouma if you want a West Ham defender. There's quite a lot, and we're going to be covering this in the upcoming videos, but we have mentioned them already. Who to get forward? I have Raya in goal. I'm thinking of Gabriel and Odegaard out for Shaw and Fernandes. And do Tony to Haaland. That 130 I'm going to bench boost. Who to get forward? I'd probably go for either Kepa or David De Gea. But because you're already going for Shaw and Fernandes, yeah, then it doesn't really make sense to go for De Gea because you probably have Rashford as well. Yeah, Gabriel and Odegaard out looks good. I'd do that. I'd probably bring in Shaw / Estupinian and Fernandes. Tony to Haaland looks good as well. And bench boost, obviously, I think a lot of us will do that this week. Top 3 striker picks. I mean, with Tony, I like him for 29, but as always, he's always a yellow card risk. That is the big problem with him. I'd say my top 3 right now would be Watkins, Kane, and Isak, and then you can bring Haaland in 30. Who do you think has the best double next week? Brighton will be up there. On paper, West Ham as well. I have to admit, West Ham, but are they good enough to make, you know, something out of those fixtures. I'm not so sure. But yeah, I'd say West Ham, Brighton, Man United are up there too. I'm also looking at, obviously, their level, and you'd expect them to win those games. But yeah, I think those three. Brighton have the best one. Anyone else? We could look down the list now here. And I think Chelsea, I mean, I know they're facing Liverpool at home, but I could see, you know, a draw. And if they can keep a clean sheet there, that'd be great. So a Kepa, a Chilwell looks really enticing. Oddly enough, I know it sounds crazy, and maybe you're going to disagree, but I think Leeds, you know, when you're looking at a Rodrigo, a Harrison, I do like that. I could see them getting a goal or something like that against Arsenal. And against Forest, I mean, they're literally the worst team away from home. They've conceded 31 goals, I think. They've only scored 4. Forest are awful on their travels. So, yeah, I think Leeds has to be mentioned. Leicester, they have good fixtures against Palace and Aston Villa at home. Yeah. So, the best ones, you know, the best fixtures, in my opinion, would be West Ham, Man United, Leicester, Leeds, and Chelsea. But for me, the absolute standout is probably Brighton. I know they face Brentford, but yeah, Brighton for me is the standout. But yeah, I'm not so sure about that gold head. I mean, it's going to be spring there, I think, but even then, it's 30 degrees or something. But yeah, I'm not even sure if I can, like I said, if I can have the facilities, you could say, for streaming. But let's wait and see. Wise just been absolutely troll. Like, I benched him when he got clean sheets, and then I played him. He didn't get anything. And when I did sell him for Zinchenko, he scored and got an assist. Yeah, literally the week I sold White, he scores his first ever goal for Arsenal. So I'm happy to sell Odegaard if it means he's going to get points again and do really well for Arsenal. Chilwell or James? Still Chilwell. Bench boost next game, a good idea? Yeah, of course. 12 doubles, great fixtures. Why not? Because of your Argentinian roots, Messi or Maradona? Look, it's kind of a generational thing. People my age will say Messi. People who saw Maradona will say Maradona. I'm seeing people say both. I think that is probably the correct answer. But if I looked at it objectively, who's the better player? For me, it's Messi. You know, I think Messi has Maradona's magic for the most part, but he also has, you know, the consistency for 15 plus years, which Maradona didn't have. So, in my personal opinion, Messi is better. But I'm happy to say both because they're both Argentinian. Son to Bowen or Rodrigo and Kane to Isak for -4. I would rather do Son to Rodrigo and get Isak for -4. I'd actually rather go for Rodrigo than Bowen. How's Bowen instead of Maddison? Not bad. We know what Bowen's capable of, but I'd rather go for Maddison. I think I agree. Leeds and Leicester, for me, could see some attacking returns. Yeah, don't go for the defenders, we know that, but their attackers could be pretty decent. Yeah, Forest is a fantastic... Yeah, they've got good fixtures on paper, but honestly, Forest away from home, they are diabolical. They really are. I can't stress that enough. With Ward not playing and poor Brentford fixtures, is it really necessary to play bench boost or keep it? Yeah, but you can easily sell Ward for... Look, this is one of the few times I would recommend taking a -4 for a goalkeeper. Selling Ward to a goalkeeper with 2 games. I think it makes sense, and you will get a profit of that. Is it worth selling an Arsenal asset for a -4? Yes. If it's a defender, 100% is worth it. If it's Martinelli, it's a bit tricky, but I'd be happy to. If it's Saka, I probably wouldn't, but... You know, once again, it can pay off in the short term. For me, Saka, Martinelli are the only ones that if I had them in my team, I'd probably keep and not take a -4 for. If it's anyone else, I'm happy to do it. Which transfer is better? Defender for Brentford to Shaw or Chilwell or Odegaard to Fernandes? I'd take a -4, Bartosz. But if I had to pick one and prioritise one, I think Odegaard to Fernandes is the better move. I really like West Ham's double, but I don't trust none of their assets. Exactly. I'd say Benrahma is another one, and Zuma. But, yeah, I still don't see where the clean sheets are going to come from. Yeah, maybe they could keep one this week, but honestly, they're awful options in general. The way I see it is, if you bring in a West Ham defender and they keep one clean sheet, that's pretty much it. They're going to be useless for you for the rest of the season. Havertz is going under the radar. I don't think so, because we discussed him heading into the deadline. There was a lot of love for him then. He's been in good form recently, but I still think there are better forwards, I have to say. That's just my personal opinion. Yeah, the 2 home games look appealing, but yeah, I'd rather bring Haaland back in, for example. Best 5 defenders for the double. You'll see this in my upcoming videos, but sure, Estupinian, Trippier, Chilwell, and I'd probably go for... Yeah, I think the fifth defender is where it gets a bit tricky, but I think I would go for... I'd go for Mings there, potentially. Which I'm not sure how many times I'm going to do that this season. Kane to Isak for the double. Yeah, I've seen a lot of people say this today, which is surprising, I'll be honest. But yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. I'd rather keep Kane. Long term, I think that's the best move. But in 29, yeah, Isak should outscore him. Now this is the only one, and maybe Johnson. I like Johnson as a player. He's my favourite option. Probably Gibbs White second. The thing with Navas is he's a top goalkeeper historically, but Nottingham Forest defence is awful. I could see him conceding 2 or 3 against Leeds. 72 points for me today. Yeah, Saka captain came in clutch. Yeah, I think sometimes you just need these little details to go your favour. And yeah, I think Saka captain was a big game changer this week. On a -12 with bench boost, Joao Felix to Watkins, Emerson Real to Shaw, Ward to Iverson, and Martinelli to Maddison. Yeah, I like all of those transfers. I think Felix to Watkins isn't necessary. I like Watkins more, but you could just keep Joao Felix, in my opinion. The rest makes absolute sense, but I have to say, if you are taking a hit for a goalkeeper, I would not be going for a Leicester one. I would not go for Iverson. And I'm pretty sure you can afford someone else. Steele, David De Gea. You know, there's still a few other options as well that we've mentioned. Kepa Arrizabalaga, Nick Pope even. I'd rather go to any one of those goalkeepers instead of Iverson. I'm thinking about captaining Maddison or James differential plus bench boost. Stay with Haaland, Kane and Saka. Any thoughts about selling Odegaard for -4 doublers? I'm looking to do that. Odegaard, I'm kind of sick of recently. He's been very frustrating. Literally last week I benched him and he scores, which is just kind of sums it up. But yeah, I would do that. And as for captaining Maddison, he'd be up there in my top 5 maybe. I'd go so far to say that potentially. The only problem is he plays for Leicester. Yeah, James differential looks pretty decent, but I wouldn't captain Reece James. Definitely not. Yep, 12 double gameweek players is enough. There will be people with 13, 14, maybe even 15, but 12 is a good number. So thank you to everyone for tuning in. If you haven't already, you know what to do. Smash the like button, subscribe for new. We've answered many questions today, as we always do. And let's try to get even closer to 25 subscribers. And I'm going to check the next goal in terms of likes as well. I think we can get to over 100. Yeah, so we've got over 100 people watching. Just keep on smashing the like button. It really helps out the channel. And it costs nothing as well. So I appreciate those that have done it already. Wedcraft says, currently I have only Kane, Saka, Martinelli without double game week, and Ward. What transfers should I prioritize? I think the one single game week option that I would sell, or look to sell, is Martinelli. With some tough games coming up as well. You've got Saka already to cover Arsenal. Yeah, Ward. So Ward would be the big priority. Then it would be Martinelli. Saka's the one I'd be most inclined to keep of those 4, but do not forget how consistent Kane is. So yeah, Ward would be my priority. Still made a mistake last game, and Sanchez did very well in the FA Cup. Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, look, I'd still rather go for Steele and take that risk than go for Iverson. And also, if it was me, and I'm looking to wildcard now, I wouldn't go for any of them. I'd go for the likes of De Gea, Raya even, who's still a great option up until game week 38, Kepa Arrizabalaga, and Nick Pope. Have 2 free transfers, thinking of Kane to Isak, Odegaard to Maddison, and selling Zinchenko to Chilwell for a -4. Yeah, I mean, you know my feelings on Kane. I think that transfer, yes, it could pay off now. I think that's the only one that could come back to bite you in the future. I still think Kane outscores Isak comfortably until the end of the season. But Odegaard to Maddison, good move. Zinchenko to Chilwell, also a great move as well. Tarkowski to Castagno or Botman? I'd go to Botman. Less defensively, I'm not having it. I just wouldn't go there. Ward replacement with 1.6 million in the bank and Raya my starting goalkeeper. I think I'd go for Kepa. Yeah, sounds pretty standard, but for me it's between Kepa or De Gea. And I'd go for Kepa. 2 home games, and Chelsea still are decent defensively despite their blip yesterday. Yeah, Chelsea are unreliable, but Kepa's still a great value option, and I think some returns are coming very soon. So yeah, that's the way I'd go about it. So let's show you a few different screens very briefly, a bit of a sneak peek to what you're going to see in the upcoming streams as well. Hopefully we can get some done over the next month, but I will let you guys know and keep you updated. Be sure to follow my social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Discord server, and also on YouTube. If you subscribe, you can check out my community posts and you'll see all the updates on this channel. But the plan is, if I can to get more videos and streams out there for you as well. In terms of price rises and falls, not much to report on actually, and I think it will be kind of low activity. Most people like myself will be waiting until the international break is over before confirming our transfers. But if you do look at those about to go down in price, Saliba's one of them. He missed out today due to injury, and he's also going to be withdrawn from the France squad, and I think it's a back problem he has. But just hoping he's back for Game Week 29 onwards. Arsenal definitely need him. But yeah, not much to report on in terms of price rises and falls. In terms of fixtures, Leicester are now top of the league, despite facing Man City very soon, and it's away. You've also got Leeds, Bournemouth, Man United, West Ham in the top 5. A few others like Newcastle, Villa, Brighton also up there. In terms of those at the bottom, Southampton, Arsenal, Man City, Spurs and Everton. So you have the 2 title contenders there right in the bottom 3 of the fixture ticker. They of course face each other and have some difficult games along the way. Arsenal against Liverpool away, you've got Chelsea at home as well, and Newcastle away a few games afterwards, so not looking great for the Gunners, but yeah, looks pretty good in general. We've got some new faces in the top 5 and the top 10 of the fixture ticker. And predicted points, a lot of you asking who's the best captain, a long way away, but Rashford is favoured by the algorithm. March is second, McAllister third, Danny Ings is in fourth. I mean, the fixtures are there. Not too sure if I'd go for him. Bruno Fernandes, Matoma, Maddison, Johnson and Gibbs-White completing the top 10, with Nottingham Forest having some favourable fixtures too. I'm very concerned though about their away record, and I think that is enough to put me off any Nottingham Forest asset without all the other reasons that we've disclosed as well. If you are feeling bad about a few things, such as the captaincy this week, you're not the only one, because 59% of us have captain Harry Kane in the top 10k, and if we look at the top 250k as well, I think it'll be a bit closer, but Harry Kane was the popular captaincy choice this week. He got a return, but it was overshadowed by the second most popular option in Bukayo Saka, who got 18 points, so a massive congratulations to those of you that did it, and I'll be honest, I'm surprised. I thought he'd do well, not 18 points though. Is Fernandes essential? No, he's not. Neto goalkeeper thoughts? No. You're asking about FPL, a Bournemouth goalkeeper? I'm not going to do that. And Bournemouth are just leaking in goals left, right and centre. I don't think it's a great goalkeeper in general. Can Benfica win the Champions League? Yes, they can. Do I think they will? No. I can't even think about it without getting chills. It'd be the happiest day of my life. I'd rather Benfica win. You know, Benfica or Napoli would be great, but I'll be completely honest. I think it's going to be one of the typical ones, Madrid or Bayern. I think experience plays a big part. But whenever I watch Benfica in the Champions League, they're impressive. In the Portuguese league, they always win pretty much. I think they've dropped points 3 times. I think they're unbeaten as well. So Benfica have a good team. Enzo Fernandez leaving, not a problem. They're still a really good, solid unit. I do think, yeah, when I look at it, I think the semi-finals is where they'll end up and probably get knocked out to Napoli. And then I think Napoli will be losing finalists. But that's just a prediction. I tend to get it wrong. So maybe that means you win it. Why people would transfer Kane out for Isak, I just don't understand. Look, I think maybe a big part of that is the fact that Isak got a huge return, 2 goals, and also had an assist ruled out, probably wrongfully as well, if we're being honest. Yeah, for me, Harry Kane is just so consistent. And if you're looking to take a hit to go to Isak from Kane, despite the double, I don't see the real benefits long-term of that. I like Isak as a player, but I still think Kane is a far better option. Tony to Isak, considering his 9 yellows and 2 rough fixtures, yeah. I'd actually rather sell Tony than Harry Kane to Isak. Do you think McAllister will play both games? Yeah. I mean, he's very important to Brian. I see no reason why not. De Gea, Steele, Iverson, Raya for Ward, already have Kepa. Already have Kepa, yeah, that's fair. Honestly, I'd probably go for De Gea. From those options you mentioned, if you're happy to not go with one of Bruno Fernandes or Shaw, I'd go for De Gea. Honestly, I think that looks pretty good. I like Steele, but I think De Gea is a slightly better option. Also, no kind of concerns about, Steele, Sanchez, etc. I think Steele keeps his place. I'll make that clear, but I think De Gea is slightly better. Pope plus cash minus for incoming. Yeah, look, I have to say, I might even, once on vacation, all of that, devise some plans to be different for once and, go for some different players and spice things up a little bit, because I think things are a bit boring at the moment. Yeah, I think Pope and cash, I could think of worse transfers, let me put it that way. Let's now go back to my team, answer any last questions. Just for those of you that aren't aware, I scored 49 points this week, which is pretty poor. A big reason for that is captaining Kane over Saka, and also having Odegaard over Martinelli. Yeah, there you go. And I think Chilwell owners very unlucky. I know Wasting, of course, captaining Chilwell, very hard done by. He played very well, and it does bode well for the future. But he also won the points in the short term, and I think that was severely lacking in Game Week 28 for the likes of me. But there you go. It's good to see so many green arrows in the chat. 60, 70 points and stuff like that. It's good to see, and hopefully by the time we get to the next few streams and videos, we can all get some more green arrows and have some new players and differentials to boost our ranks even further. But thank you to everyone for tuning in. A bit of a short one today, an hour and a half. Normally we go on for 2 hours or 2 hours and a half, but we have covered all the questions and topics we need, our initial thoughts for 29, and talking about Game of 28. All the games are done there. Subscribe to the channel, smash the like button, and also follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Try to get this video to over 100 likes. It's massively appreciated. And check all the links in the description for the Discord server, FPL League, the social media platforms, and Sorare, another fantasy game. So if you're playing badly in FPL, you can maybe do really well in Sorare and earn weekly prizes as well. Without even having to spend any money, you can have something completely different, pick your own players, play your own game, and do really well there too. But thank you everyone for tuning in. It's massively appreciated. Thank you, Wedcraft. It's good talking to you. Some great questions and comments posed by you. Thank you, Sebastian, too. I'm probably going to go sleep now as well. After dinner, I'm going to go sleep. McAllister's playing for Argentina. Yeah, I was going to say that just after answering it. That is true. But it's a friendly, and yeah, I don't really see the big reason for Argentina to kind of hold him. You know, Brighton will probably be insistent, say, look, we need McAllister. You know, we're fighting on 2 fronts here. I think McAllister will be fine. Yep, Shepard, thank you very much. Thank you, Magic69 too. And like I said, the plan is to keep on doing streams even on holiday. If I have a stable internet, it will be done, and there will be no stopping the consistent content, which we've done all season and for the last 2 or 3 years. So that is the plan. I'll keep you guys updated, and girls, of course. Thank you very much for tuning in. Enjoy the football. Good luck for Double Gameweek 29, and hopefully our bench boosts and all our players do a great job in that game week.